features inside tools for adding maps and things, and there's sort of meta-level features like the gradebook and so on. So I think it's going to take some months, years to come to grips with all that's possible, but it's pretty cool, and all credit to the team for doing that. However, one of the things you might be thinking now is like, oh, that's so much, it's so complex. And one of the things I actually like about LAMS was its simplicity, and does this all make it now actually be too much? And so we've actually been trying to push LAMS in two different directions at the same time. On the one hand, to keep adding more powerful features so people can do more things with it. But in another bit of work, trying to think about ways of making it simpler and easier to use, particularly for teachers who haven't used it before when they get started. And this is a bit of work we call the activity planner. This is not yet out, so it's not ready for widespread use, but it's reached the point where it's up for real testing. So I thought I would just show you a little bit of it today as to a direction we're going. So half of what the activity planner is trying to do is just create a much simpler way to get started with LAMS. But the other thing it's doing is now sharing examples of good designs, good sequences. So rather than LAMS being just a blank authoring environment where you have to think up everything from scratch, the activity planner comes pre-populated with good designs that you can then adapt. So let me just give you only a very brief snapshot of what this looks like. To see this new tab, planner, so separate from author. And at the top level, we can have any number of categories, which would be like pre-picture categories of pre-built sequences or sort of template designs. Now we've got a couple here we're just mucking around with. I don't want you to worry too much about the specific words here, but let's say we thought, well, I'd like to look at some different teaching strategies. And so I click on that link. And then go into an area where we've pre-built a bunch of strategies. So you can see there, problem-based learning, predictive observe explain, which Matthew has helped us with, web dilemma, web quest role play. And so at this point you can say, yeah, I've never done a role play. I'd be interested to have a look at one of those, see how it works, and consider using it. So, I will take that example. If I click on role play, what I then get is a section with just sort of an overview. What is a role play? How does it work? Why might you consider it for some teaching? It's only fairly brief, but just a way of thinking about it. And then down at the bottom of the page, in this case, what we've done is there are three things. You can go to a particular pre-built role play ready to run, all the content's done. There's then a kind of template version of that pre-built role play. So with the specific role play context taken out of it, but with all the structure there in place. And then the third is actually a link to all sorts of other more sophisticated role plays if you already know about it and you'd like to go find something else. So let's say I thought, well, this one about a role play about adopting interactive whiteboards. Let me have a look at that. And so what I get to is a page which tells me about the structure of this particular role play. And you can see here there's a screenshot of the actual LAMS sequence. And so in this particular sequence, students take on one of two roles in a typical school. Teachers are in favour of the interactive whiteboards and those who've got concerns about them. And they actually play out a role play where they get allocated to one of those two roles. They go off and reflect with the other people just in that role privately on what their ideas are and their arguments. And then they come together, the two groups, and they kind of argue out the case of whether they think it's a good idea for the school or not. And at the very end, they vote on what they think should be done. This is just a particular little role play pedagogy. It's all pre-built. But that gives you, in this case, a description of what's in there. And I can then do two things. I can hit preview, which will take me into a preview from the learner's perspective of this sequence. In this case, all pre-built and ready to go. So let me see it. I want to know what this role play looks like. It'll take me in, and I can step through the tasks. The first few tasks are the background, and then they get broken up into groups, and then there's private discussion, and then they come back for the main role play, debate, discussion, and so on. So I won't go through all the detail on that. Just sort of to point out, you've got this far in the planner, you've read some background text, you've had a look at the preview. Well, then we have this new kind of editor. And what we've done is we've gone to LAMS and said, you know what? Inside a typical LAMS sequence, there is the instructions or the content for what to do in each task. And then there's lots and lots of settings or details about how it works. In this case, if the template's already pre-built, it's got all the settings ready to run a role play, and all you have to worry about is just the content, the instructions, the scenario. Could we get that all onto one page for editing? So instead of LAMS all through, we've got to click and open every tool and go in and look at it. What you're looking at now is a single page editor that's just showing the text for each key task. So here's the role play overview and what text is there. Here's the scenario, the actual scenario of the role play. and so on down the page. So that it's a kind of simplified editor where you don't, if you're happy to accept this role play template, someone built this and it's been pre-built to be a good template, I'll just use it as is, but I want it to be on my topic. So maybe I don't want it to be about interactive whiteboards, I want it to be about climate change. Well, all you would do is go through and just change the bits of this text to apply it to your topic, and then you're ready to go. So you get a pre-built sequence out of this where you can still change the text to suit your teaching. One extra feature we've also added here, just so you might notice this little editing advice button here. This is sort of contextual advice about editing the text for this specific task. So here, there's a description of the scenario. If you want to change that to your own scenario, so the climate change scenario, here's some advice about how to rewrite the scenario, things to watch out for, ways to phrase the text, and so on. And maybe if you're asking the question of your students, what's a good way of phrasing the text of that question? So what we've tried to do is, in this new activity planner, to sort of put together a few steps. There's a kind of selection process where you can look through a range of pre-built templates, choose one that you think is appropriate. You then get to the detail about that, where you can preview it and you can read about it. And then you get to this page where, if you want to edit the text, you can. Now, some of the templates may be completely pre-built and ready to go immediately. You may need to do no editing, just pick it up and run it. If you like this role play about interactive whiteboards in school, you can click and run that immediately. But if it's more that you wanted to get a good sort of template, a good set of ideas for something, but to adapt to your content, then you can use this editor to change it. So that's the basic idea of the activity planner. And if I go just right down to the bottom here, you'll see I've got a few options. I still can go to full author. So if you get this far and you think, I actually do want to change the underlying structure, you can do that. When you click full author, it opens up and you've got full rights to do anything you like. You can export the sequence so that we were running this on one of our servers, but you still wanted to get the sequence and run on your local LAMP server, you could. You can save it so you can play with it later. You can still preview the changes you've made and so on. So that's I hope you can see in one sense what we're trying to do. On the one hand, as Bernie was describing, put a lot more power and potential into LAMPs. But on this side, we're then trying to say, let's hide 80 to 90% of that and get experts to just kind of pre-build some templates. And now provide a way that a newer teacher can come to this, choose one they like, maybe edit it a little bit, but be ready to go straight away. So that's the driver for the activity planner. As I say, we're still developing it, and it's still sort of early days. Well, it's not early days. It's actually ready to use, but we're still testing to try and get the way that this works right. You'll notice there's a search option there, so you can in fact go and search for things if you want to try and jump straight to something. So a couple of different bits. And one last point, and that is we're building this thing, so this planner, so that you can even build your own planners. So one day, if you were, say, a central group at ACT, and you want to put together your own planner with your own set of templates to give out to your teachers, maybe based on your curriculum or a particular project, then you can delete all our stuff and start your own one from scratch, or mix and match, take bits of ours, bits of your own. And the way that you create your own planner is you actually author normal LAMP sequences and just author them in a way suitable for this approach. And you load them into this environment, and then it appears in the way I did with that little simplified editor. So that may be perhaps a little bit further down the track, but we have the idea that not only is this something that we will build to try and help teachers to get going with, we'll build a real one of these with templates in it, but for other expert designers, we can see that they will build their own templates and their own advice, what advice and categories they choose. So that's one other place that we're headed. If you're interested in that, Leanne's sort of helping me leading that project, and we have a number of people who are kind of playing with this in sandpit with us at the moment. So if you'd like to do that and give us feedback on this idea, we're welcome.
I'm going to play with it.